So today marked the fourth hearing by the committee, and we also learned more about the roles that members of Congress may have played in the push to overturn the results.
Joining us with more insight, Stephen Caliendo with North Central College. Professor, thank you for joining us again.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I think we're going to see you in just a minute. There you are. First of all, more riveting testimony in today's hearing, which we've been hearing all along, and new information that the public didn't know. What would you say were some of the bombshells from today?
There were three main points, Mike, I think that really stood out to me today. One, there was some additional clarity from what we knew before about the president's direct involvement in applying pressure. We knew that before. We've heard the call from the Georgia Secretary of State. That's been made available for a long time. But we heard other testimony about the president personally calling people. And again, if we're thinking about, we've all talked about Watergate and what it meant and when the president knew what he knew and when he knew it. The evidence here over and over again is the president didn't just know something, he was directly involved in what was happening. So that was important. The other element today was that he had direct influence over others who then turned and harassed and continued to harass officials. And so some very gripping testimony and tearful at times testimony from several of the witnesses. And then finally, as you just mentioned, as you cut to me, members of Congress involved. And we got a preview of this a couple of weeks ago in the primetime hearing, the first hearing, where Representative Cheney pointed out that several members of Congress asked President Trump for pardons on his way out of office because of their engagement in this. We haven't heard too much about that. Today was a little bit of a teaser. I think we're going to hear more of that in the future.
And some of the, the evidence pointed to someone like Rudy Giuliani, who said, we don't have evidence, but we have theories when he went to Rusty Bowers. What does that tell you about the smoking gun here, to coin a phrase that Giuliani himself liked? And what does it say about, other lies like that?
It's hard because certainly there's going to be WGN viewers who are convinced that nothing was done wrong, that the election was stolen from President Trump, and there's other viewers who believe quite the opposite. I think what it shows, though, is that even when there was a lot of evidence presented to President Trump's camp, that the election was not stolen, there were no irregularities that rose to the level of any concern. The idea was throw it into disarray anyway and hope the courts will sort it out later. And the hope, of course, is that there were enough conservative judges on the courts that would side with President Trump. But one of the things that this committee has shown throughout its hearings so far is that many, many, many lifelong Republicans, when presented with this opportunity, pushed back and said, this is wrong, I can't do it. It doesn't matter if I'm a Republican, I have to uphold my constitutional responsibility. And that's mostly what President Trump and his team ran into when they asked people to engage in this behavior.
Would you agree that January 6th, what we learned today is that January 6th isn't the only thing that Trump did to help overturn this election?
Well, we've known for some time that there's going to be a number of things that lead up to January 6th. And I think we've talked about this before, that many, many months before the election even took place, President Trump was telling crowds of supporters that the only way that they could lose is if the election was rigged. So he sowed those seeds early. He certainly did so again on election night. He did so in the weeks between election night and January 6th when the electoral votes were to be counted. And so absolutely, there are several iterations here that tell a compelling story. It's not just what happened on January 6th, although that's certainly the culmination of what the committee is investigating because of the violence and the remarkable activity that we've never seen before. But a lot of what led up to that, to get people to that point, is what the committee is showing us throughout these hearings.
Stephen Maynard Caliendo with North Central College. Thanks again for your insight tonight.
It's great to see you both.
You too. WGN will have live special coverage of Thursday's January 6th hearing. It's scheduled to start at noon. You can watch it here on WGN TV and at WGNTV.com, as well as the WGN Plus app on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, as well as Apple TV.